Welcome into another episode of the Fourth and Goal podcast. I am one of your hosts, Drew, along with my co-host, Rob. Say hi to the people, Rob.
Good to be back, folks. Second week in a row. Plan to make all of them moving forward. No more Africa Sojourns. It is just football from here on out. Let's go.
Yeah, the big thing is going to be Rob's internet connection. We actually tried filming this earlier today, but Rob's connection down in Mexico not working too well. Seems to be a bit better. Hopefully it's a bit better. If he stays in for this whole episode, you'll know it worked out.
Hey, it's the farm life. What can I say?
Yeah, the Mexican farm life. Texcoco. You're one of what, 10
go,
citizens
baby.
in that city? Maybe 15?
There might be 18. There might be 18.
Okay. Sorry. But we got a lot to get into, not that much time to cover it, so let's get into some of the news and notes. And I think the biggest thing we want to get into is the injury report. So, Rob, what are some of the injuries that you saw this weekend, and what were your thoughts on them and the impact in terms of fantasy football and football in general?
And yet again, we have another week full of injuries, right? I feel like it wasn't as bad this week, which is saying something considering Christian McCaffrey went down, Deebo Samuels went down. We got an update on Anthony Richardson that wasn't very good. Who else? We had Montgomery from your Lions, right? So unfortunately, a lot of big names still going down. There is something in the water or the soil this season. Big news for the Niners, I think, is probably the team that we need to watch the most. The Lions have some depth at running back, and they should be getting Jahmyr Gibbs back pretty soon. So I'm not as concerned about them. But losing two of your best weapons around Brock Purdy on that Niners team, who's really trying to compete for that number one spot against the Eagles, that's where I feel like this will be felt the most. What are your thoughts? You seem to think that this was another just as bad week moving ahead.
First of all, there is three teams competing for that number one seed in the NFC. Three teams at 5-1. Don't sleep on my Lions, who have a pretty easy schedule remaining.
Fine. Maybe I've been sleeping on them all year, so why should I start? Why should I unsleep now?
Yeah. But, I think a lot of the injuries you went over, I think the best news that we have is that a lot of these injuries are not long-term. David Montgomery is going to be back this season. Christian McCaffrey is going to be back this season. Kyren Williams went down. He's going to be back this season. I didn't hear of any major injuries. There's no, torn ACLs, torn Achilles. I think the scariest one was the Damian Harris injury in the Sunday Night Football game for the Bills. But, I hope he gets better. It seems like he's going to be 100%. His extremities are moving. But he's not a person that's crucial to the Buffalo Bills' chances of succeeding this season. And it's good that he's going to be okay. I think the biggest injury news is actually an injury from last week. That being Anthony Richardson, likely going to have season-ending shoulder surgery. This guy couldn't stay on the field. I think he completed one full game in his rookie season here. I had him in fantasy. I was waiting for that breakout. He had so much promise, and I dropped him for Elijah Mitchell ahead of the 1 o'clock games this week.
Well, that was probably a wise move. It is a bummer to hear. As followers of this program will know, I also had him as my Rookie of the Year pick. So that's pretty much gone and washed.
Yeah.
More importantly, we're on to officially the Gardner Minshew train. Once more, I feel like there's always a Gardner Minshew train at some point for some franchise in this season, right?
Yep.
But hey, they got JT back. We talked about that a little bit last week. This is a wide open division if the Jags aren't able to turn it around, which we can talk about in a little bit. Yep. But again, or the Texans being frisky, right? So I do think there's a shot that Gardner Minshew can take them to the top of this division merely based on kind of schedule and their defense, which keeps them in games. But yeah, it's just a bummer to see, as we said, such talent early in their careers taking an injury like this. But hopefully he can keep learning and come back bigger than ever for a sophomore campaign. My last thing I just want to talk about is, I think the best part is that these injuries don't seem to be too severe. We don't have the Chubb Rodgers kind of won't even replay it. Tyreek was injured for a little bit. He came back on. So there's some of that this week. It's just, it sucks for the Bills though. Another one of these way more serious injuries than like anybody ever wants to see, kind of in back-to-back primetime spots. So thank God for the Bills medical staff seems to be earning their paychecks, but it is a bummer all around. Matt Milano last week too, so literally something in that Buffalo turf is eating up that team. So that's a bummer.
Yeah,
for the Bills.
Something with that Buffalo team. Don't know what's been going on with them, but they have had, we've talked for years about the 49ers and the injury bug. I think at some point we got to start talking about the Bills. They are every bit as bad, if not worse, than the 49ers when it comes to key injuries, at least the past few seasons. But let's move on. I quickly want to talk about a signing that won't impact anyone playing fantasy football, won't really impact the NFL at all, but it's just a fun name, and that's Julio Jones signing a contract with the Philadelphia Eagles.
You say that's not going to impact the NFL. I already see a game in the playoffs where they're going 5 wide on some critical third type of down situation, game on the line, when Julio Jones makes a big catch. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. Julio Jones will make an impact on this NFL season.
This is 34-year-old Julio Jones. Dude, Julio Jones is like your age. He's just out here with this walker. Can I get down the field, please? Jalen, get me the ball.
I did kind of throw out my shoulder putting the water cooler on at work today, so you might have a point there. But there's something to be said about the savvy vet. That team needs a little bit of experience. Julio Jones understands, run the play clock out a little bit longer when you're up 28-3 against Tom Brady. Those are critical insights to have down the stretch. And like I said, Julio Jones will have an impact on this National Football League season.
I might start calling him Julio Bones because he's so old he might as well just be a skeleton.
God, that was bad.
That was real bad. Nice dad joke. Yeah, we're moving on from that.
Please
we're moving on
for your own sake.
The last thing that we want to talk about here is the trade deadline. It's 2 weeks away. We are filming this on October 17th. The trade deadline is October 31st. Is there anyone that you see getting traded? And where do you see them going to? Whether you think it's going to happen or you think it should happen.
You know what I would like to see? We just mentioned them before. Let's get Kirk Cousins on the Indianapolis Colts. That's a place where these quarterbacks go. You had the Wentz train. You have all of these quarterbacks coming in on the 1-year rentals that they were doing for some time there. I forgot who was before Wentz.
Somebody else. Wentz, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers.
Matt Ryan, that's the one I was thinking of. Phillip Rivers, right? Jacoby Brissett. Let's get a Kirk Cousins to the Colts. See if he can't right the ship there. If all else fails, we got the Gardner Minshew trade again. I just kind of like the Shakespearean comedy / tragedy aspect of that. And I think the Vikings, we all agree, need to reboot that team.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is definitely the biggest name that might be dangled out there. Justin Jefferson is on IR. He's going to miss a number of weeks. They have only 2 wins. They might be planning to get a wild card spot, but they're not catching the Lions in that division. They're not going to be catching teams like the Cowboys. I think the Rams are better. I think the Seahawks are better. And those are all teams that aren't going to be winning the division because they're in the same division as the Lions, Eagles, and 49ers. So
right.
I think this is going to be a really, really tough go for the Vikings. It's unlikely Kirk Cousins re-signs there. And the only reason I don't see him going is if they are using Kirk Cousins to try to re-sign Justin Jefferson. Like, is this a play where they're going to re-sign Kirk?
Yeah.
Because if they don't have that sorted, Justin Jefferson has said he wants to play with a QB, and he doesn't want to re-sign. So it's like they're held a bit over a barrel, but I agree with you. I think in terms of football fandom, trading Kirk Cousins, you can get good value for Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Dude, put him on the Jets.
Oh,
that'd be
to me, that's the team
for the Kirk Meister.
I think the Colts could be a playoff team with Kirk Cousins.
Right.
The Jets could be a contender with Kirk Cousins.
Right. That'd be just a fun storyline. Like, the Jets need a little bit of good luck after the whole Rodgers saga ended so poorly. Hopefully he's recovering well.
Yeah, the one I'm interested in is
anyone else for trades? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Devontae Adams. That's the name I'm watching. He is on a ridiculous contract. He's getting paid like $30 million, and he's 31 right now. He's getting paid that until he's 35, I think. It's a terrible contract. This team is not winning anytime soon, the Raiders. If they can offload him while he still has some value, even getting a mid-round pick because the contract is that bad, I think that's something you got to do. If you're the Raiders, try to get something back for him because he's not happy there. You're not using him. You're not winning with him. Get out of that contract while you still can. And I think there will be teams that want him. I've heard the Ravens talked about. Some people have exactly. Some people have said the Lions. I don't get that one. Our offensive passing game is fine, but there's definitely teams out there who need a wide receiver. Davante Adams is the name I'm watching for the trade deadline in terms of big names that could move.
I like that. And there's a couple destinations where I think he'd be good. I think someone in that AFC South and NFC South could make a play, right? I could see like the Falcons or the Saints, these teams that are a little frisky and the chance to make a playoff run. The Texans, even, they got a couple of young talent, but that'd be fun. Even the Bills give a 1-2 for Stephon Diggs.
The Bills,
kind of Miami-esque, right?
I think the Bills is a great team because this is a team that's in a win-now situation. If they have the cap room to fit him under their cap, because, Gabe Davis is all right, but... it is Stephon Diggs, and it is a big drop-off in terms of receiving options. And we saw that Sunday night when basically no one but Diggs was targeted early in the game. You get
that's all Josh Allen was looking at, right? He's just staring down Diggs the whole time with a prop bet on him.
Let's be clear. There are no rumors about Davante Adams to the Bills. I don't even know if they could do it with the cap. But at the end of the day, Davante Adams, in my opinion, if he goes to the Bills and they don't lose anyone considerably, that takes an offense that is literally Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and a bunch of, frankly, scrubs, who's already one of the top offenses in the league. With just that, you got Davante Adams. I think that's a Super Bowl contender, even with the defensive injuries. And not a contender. I mean, Super Bowl favorite. Yeah.
Dolphins-esque, right?
Dolphins-esque with a better defense. But... either way, let's move into a weekly recap, talking about some of the games that happened this past week. Rob, what were your thoughts on the Week 6 slate of games and any games you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we had the surprise upsets, right? Of course, the Niners and the Eagles going down. So shout out to the Jets and the Browns for taking them down. My kind of like frisky pick of the season, the Commanders had a upset win against the Falcons, which I was this close to betting on, but I ended up going with a bunch of losing bets. So, that's just kind of how I do. Yeah. Again, the Texans being frisky. I think my decision on the Texans is they get stomped by really good teams and that they're going to actually play quite well against the teams in their kind of tier, so to speak. People had them at the bottom tier. I have them definitely mid-tier, taking away games from people like the Buccaneers and the Saints, the Falcons, these Colts, right? These kind of teams. Watch out for the Texans.
Yeah, and the thing to note with the Texans, they don't have their first-round pick. Remember, they traded this year's first-round pick to get Will Anderson. So, they're doing what they need to do, and they have no incentive to tank. And they're not. They're playing really well. They crushed the draft, and you know what? Good on them. A lot of people expect them to be one of the worst teams in the league. They are not.
No, they are not. They're a good team. Unlike, say, the Panthers, who are a shitty team and don't have a pick. But
yes.
that's neither here nor there. Otherwise, my kind of notes was that the rest of the week was sort of chalk, right? You had your Chiefs, your Lions, your Ravens all winning like they were supposed to. The Jags, the Dolphins, that Vikings defense tore up the Bears. Justin Fields injury, I don't even think we mentioned that one yet.
Yeah, we did not mention the Justin Fields
injury. Yeah, but that was another critical one. You had the Bills almost winning. Almost losing, pulling it out. Same with the Cowboys. And then finally the Rams, right? So all of those were kind of in line. What were your thoughts and takeaways from the week?
Yeah, I mean, that goes over most of the games. Obviously, the two big upsets of the undefeated teams. And now we're at pretty much parity. It seems to be very clear there is a top five. Basically, every power ranking I've looked at it has the same top five, just in various orders, those being 49ers, Dolphins, Chiefs, Eagles, Lions. I think that is your top 5. I think the Bills probably sneak into there, in my opinion. I think they belong in that conversation too. But outside of that, the one game that we didn't really talk about there that I do want to bring up is the Bengals and the Seahawks. Somehow, the Bengals are 3-3 and only a game back of that division lead because nobody's really run away with that division. But the Bengals offense, they scored 2 touchdowns immediately in that game and did nothing afterwards. This still doesn't look great for Joe Burrow. It's better, but they got a tough schedule coming up. They got a bye week this week. Joe Burrow can get a bit healthier, but they still got games against the Bills, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Browns, the Ravens, like that, the 2 against the Steelers. Like that, 2 against the Steelers. That is a gauntlet, and I don't even know what the other games are, but you got all of those. This is not an easy schedule for them.
No, not at all. I think the bye week comes at the right time for them, right? They're starting to turn things around. There's still a little bit of lingering injuries. But let's not count this team out, right? A lot of teams kind of stumble out the gate, especially those that lost kind of tough playoff losses the year before, which they did against the Chiefs, right? That's essentially a lot of the same core team that lost that game. So there's a bit of a hangover there. I think they're certainly starting to click. That Seahawks team is very tough too. So let's give a little bit of credit to Seattle and their defense and bringing it. That was not necessarily that again, though, given the face of their schedule, that's the kind of game they're going to face all along. Part of that is credit to the AFC North, which is just a gauntlet there, right? As you said, the Steelers can pull out any game. The Ravens hit or miss, but a tough team. And as we saw from the Browns, they can beat the best team in the league. So it's interesting. I'm big on the Bengals. I don't think my Burrow MVP is going to come to fruition, but with my mom's affiliations and my residence there part-time, I do have a fancy for this Bengals team. As I picked against them sort of as I don't know if it was like a personal hoax last week or a personal jinx, right? Like, I've been wrong on the Bengals all year. I was heavy on them up front when they were losing. They're turning it around. I'm betting against them, picking against them. So I really should just stay away. But anyways, I think there's a lot to be seen. I also like on the flip side of the ball, that Seattle team, another team with a tough schedule, but really showing up. Geno has not regressed, I think, to the degree that people thought they would.
Nope.
They have a really good running game. Pete Carroll, although he's USC trash, is a good coach in the NFL. And so that's a good unit that can steal some games and potentially go far in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks are definitely looking a lot better. I thought they would regress. They're not. I thought the Bengals, I also counted the Bengals out. You know, early in the season, I was making my picks, just betting against the Bengals week in, week out, and it was working really well.
Yeah.
I did actually pick the Bengals over the Seahawks this week, though, so I have made my bones picking Bengals games right, and that has literally been the difference between you and I in terms of our pick'ems. Actually, I think you might be ahead of me on every team, not the Bengals.
Besides the Bengals, yeah, exactly. It is my Achilles heel, which is funny because normally it's the Steelers, but for now, I've gotten used to critically betting the Steelers. I'm still a little emotional with these Bengals. Yeah. I do want to shout out the refs in Week 6 though for fucking over multiple of my picks. That 49er games, the refs decided. That Cowboys-Chargers games was a flag fest. Both of those were critical to my personal bets as well as some survivor pools that I know my friends got tanked in. So thank you, referees, for a wonderful performance in Week 6.
Yeah, the refs, that is something we're going to have to start talking about because the refs have been really involved in some highly visible games. Again, we saw that happen with the 49ers getting upset this week. We saw that happen when the Jaguars upset the Bills over in London last week in another primetime game. And we saw it with the 49ers getting upset and losing their undefeated season and Brock Purdy's undefeated stretch. These are 3 highly, highly visible games to NFL fans that the refs have more or less been the deciding factor more than who's on either side of the ball. That's not to take anything away from these teams that have won these games. Not take anything away from the Cowboys, the Jaguars, and the Browns, because I don't think these refs' calls were extremely one-sided.
You got to win those games too. Yeah, and they weren't one-sided. They were just bad calls all around in key moments that felt like it was deciding games, which is the tragic part of that, right?
Exactly. And so I understand making calls. I understand all that. And maybe this is more of a player discipline problem than anything. But I think I would much rather watch a football game that is light on flags consistently for both teams than heavy on flags consistently for both teams. And I think that's something that hopefully the NFL is discussing and trying to fix, because again, that's 2 straight weeks where we have 3 highly visible games where the refs have played a major part in 2 of them major upsets.
Yeah, indeed. And I think at the rate we're getting kind of the New York NFL like referee box that comes in and just kind of decides things in the middle of games without like challenges needing to be called. They haven't really like talked about that, but I've watched a lot of games where it's like, well, New York looked at that and was like, let's just solve this here. Perhaps we'll start seeing that with some of these ticky-tack fouls. It's the only way I can kind of think, because if they're going to do player safety, then they also need to be able to revoke some of these kind of like personal fouls that get called that really just swing games.
Yeah, I mean, we could go for all day on some of these roughing the passer penalties, which I think are extremely
exactly. Or some of the defensive ones with receivers and stuff that's getting a little out of hand. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe if this continues, we'll have a longer discussion on it in a future week.
Exactly.
But for now, I do want to
look ahead to week 7.
Exactly. So let's look ahead to week 7. I'm going to quickly toss up. Let's start with Vegas's picks on the screen now, so everyone can see Vegas's picks on the screen. So what we got here...
Vegas. That's the arch rival, by the way. Yeah. Drew and I do have a friendly competition, but it's both of us against the house. Fuck Vegas.
Exactly. Our goal is to outpick Vegas. And so you can see here what Vegas's picks are. You can also see 3 bye weeks this season, 3 bye games. That means there is 6 teams on bye this week. That's a lot. If you're in fantasy, I'm sure you are scouring the waiver wire to replace those guys. But some not many, like, I think probably the Lions-Ravens. That's a really good game. Dolphins-Eagles Sunday Nighter. That should be an absolute banger. And then another game that I think will be really good is Chargers-Chiefs in the 4 p.m. slot.
Yeah, and I'm throwing up there Rams-Steelers as well, not just because I'm a Steeler fan, but I think that's a good game. You have kind of the resurgent Rams. Both of those teams are frisky wild card, even potential, well, maybe not division winners. Actually, both of them could potentially be division winners, and this game could matter. They also don't play each other a lot. So for me, I got that game high on the list, and I'm not just a homer on that one. I do think most of the NFL might enjoy that game.
I think it can slot in nicely into a 4th, maybe a 5th slot this week in terms of games. It's mid-tier. It's mid-tier.
Yeah. It's a flex. It's flex. You got your starting running back and wide receiver. This is your flex game.
But let's move to you. Let's look at some of your different picks. We got some of your ups. Want to walk us through your upsets and maybe some of your like wild card picks?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Dolphins over the Eagles. That's actually an upset against Vegas. I just think the Dolphins are clicking right now. This isn't even a result of the Eagles losing this week to the Jets. I think this is going to be a shootout of a game, although I think you still take the under, and we can talk about that a little bit with Bookie Bob and Best Bets.
Yeah.
But I do like the Fins there. I believe my Steelers upsetting the Rams. That's not, again, a homer pick. I think it's just one of those frisky games that we tend to win. I have your Lions beating the Ravens. Again, that's an upset for me, which I think Vegas is a little bit heavy on those Ravens. I like the Lions to go in there. I mean, fuck the Ravens, obviously. Otherwise, I don't have... And then the rest of mine, I think there's a lot of games that are kind of like... I don't want to say boring, but you have like Giants, Washington football team. You kind of have the Broncos and the Packers, the Colts and the Browns, the Raiders and the Bears. Like, these games are all toss-ups. They're all kind of boring to me. So I just went, it's like, fine, the Raiders will beat the Bears, right? I think the Colts, yeah. So I don't know. Those games aren't too exciting to me. They're kind of coin flips in my mind. And so there, I think that's where you can make your bread against against Vegas. But overall, as you can see, I have a lot of upsets this week, and my bets match later, as we'll go over. So what about you, Drew? What are you thinking on week 7?
Yeah, so we'll put mine up on the screen now for everyone to see. So I I only have 2 upsets being called this week. There was 2 I was coin flipping in with as well. I'll get to those in a second. But I have the Lions beating the Ravens. Again, the Lions have looked really good. I acknowledge there's some homerism in here, but this is definitely a game I could see the Lions pulling out against a Ravens team that's been hot and cold. The only reason the Ravens team is favored is because it's in Baltimore, but they are traveling back from London. Let's not forget that.
And home field advantage doesn't matter as much this year. They've actually been like watching those stats. But yeah, that London thing, we talked about that last week. Do not underrate these teams that are traveling in and out of London.
Yeah, because look at what happened this week. The Bills just came back from London, and they got absolutely, like, they won, but against a really poor Giants team. So it's been hurting some teams. Then we got... The other one I have is the Falcons upsetting the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are better than expected, for sure. I just don't think they're that good. I think the Falcons will be able to win this one. They'll be able to... Hopefully they can get the run going, because the Buccaneers' run defense was quite good against the Lions team that wanted to run the ball. The 2 upsets of yours...
Lost their running back, though. I also have the Falcons as well.
Yeah, that's very true. The 2 upsets of yours that I like are the Jaguars-Saints... That's the Thursday nighter, though. Trevor Lawrence is coming off a bit hurt. I have taken the Saints, but I don't mind the upset call. And then the Dolphins-Eagles. That's a really close game, but what I do want to quickly talk about, most people have the Dolphins ranked as their number 1 team. I think that's foolhardy. I still think it's the 49ers. You know, this was a matchup. Shanahan has never been good against Jim Schwartz. You know, you had some injuries, but... I also want to walk through the
Cleveland, where the river catches on fire and stuff like that. So
I just want to quickly walk through the Dolphins' schedule, and that's something that no one is talking about. They won by 2 points against the Chargers, who are 2-3, 2-2 outside of games. They won by 7 points against the 1-4 Patriots. They won by 50 points against the 1-4 Broncos, whose only win was against the Bears. They lost by 28 points to the Bills. They won by 15 points against the New York Giants in Miami. And they won by 21 points against the winless Panthers. So count those up. Panthers, 0 wins. Giants, 1 win. Broncos, 1 win. Patriots, 1 win. Chargers, 2 wins. All their 5 wins have 5 total wins on the season. This has not been a good schedule. The Dolphins have had a cakewalk of a schedule. We got to stop talking about this team as being as dominant as they are, because they're dominating trash.
Yeah, that's an awful schedule. I mean, the Eagles themselves have 5 wins, right? So let's finally see. This game is in Philly, is that correct?
It is in Philly, yes.
Yeah, so that's, again, you're going to have this Miami tropical team on the road. Winter is coming. It's not quite here yet. But that was, I just see that as a shootout, and I figure it's more of a coin flip than Vegas is giving it credit for,
sure.
Which is why I ended up just taking the dog. I took that line on a lot of my underdogs this week, where I just felt it was a coin flip game, and in that scenario, like, give me the points or give me the odds, right? And I think I need to kind of upset Vegas a little bit this week, so I'm happy. And again, these are a lot of coin flippy games. Like you said, that Falcons-Bucks game took the Falcons. Fuck, it could be the Bucks, right? Like, that's not a game where I have too much confidence one way or another. That's why I would never bet on it either.
Yep.
Any last thoughts on week 7?
Yeah, so the last things we want to get into is just a quick recap. So right now, compared to Vegas is 58-35. Rob here is 2 games behind Vegas after going 10-5 this past week. I myself am 1 game ahead of Vegas. So we've been doing pretty well against Vegas. Let's see if we're able to keep that up. And also a quick shout to the pick of the week. Again, if you're playing Survivor and you've been following along and picking with either Rob or myself, you are still alive in Survivor. Like, that is impressive. We are going into week 7. Our picks have been perfect for picks of the week. We have separated again this week. I have taken the Seahawks at home against the Cardinals as my pick of the week. That aligns with Vegas. Rob, you took the other biggest spread, that being the Bills on the road against the Patriots.
And I looked closely at that Seahawks game because they're at home. But I just figure New England's not too far from Buffalo. That's not like a very treacherous away game. It's not like Foxborough in February quite yet. This Bill Belichick run, Pat's team, if it wasn't Bill Belichick over there, everyone would have had this as their pick because that Pats team is just horrendous. The Raiders kind of mollywomped them. It was close for a little bit, but like I just feel like the Bills got to win this game if they're going to be the team that we think they are. And I kind of want to use the Seahawks a little later in life. Let's get this out of the way. But after that Giants performance, I'm not feeling the most best about it. But I figured, let's just stay with. If I pick the Seahawks and they fucking lose to the Cardinals at home and the Bills trounce, like that's gonna upset me more than if I go with the Bills and they somehow shit the bed. Well, it's like, all right, well, fuck you then, Bills.
Sure. Bills against Bill.
Like that's. Yeah, exactly.
But okay, let's get moving on to our best bets with Bookie Bob segment. We are running a bit over time, but we want to go through our bets from last week, our bets this week, and a very, very quick conversation on some bad losses, and because everybody has them. So Rob, kick us off with your segment.
Yeah, this is Best Bets with Bookie Bob. Love this segment, and as always, don't love it this week. I'm just going to go straight into it. This was bad breaks are us for me in week 6. I had a Jags-Niners parlay, which was set up with a 41-yard field goal to just chip shot. I guess it's a little bit farther than a chip shot, but you got to make that. The refs fucked that over. Ended up going into that Bills-Giants game where the Bills, I had a Bills win, Diggs over 80, and Allen over 260. It was like the worst offensive performance of the Bills in history. Should have remembered the London move. They finally pulled it together, but not enough for Allen to get over. And then, of course, we get our lovely Cowboys-Chargers game where a lot of penalties swung that, and the Chargers just absolutely got their dicks kicked in at the end. Never have money on the Chargers. I should have known better. So I took L's all around. Let's not to mention I had Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase to hit 250 receiving yards combined. They got 243. So it was just a real bad break. I did win a $2 bet on the same bet as Drew. So maybe I'll hand it over to you, Drew, to tell the viewers where we actually won some money and then also where you might have hemorrhaged as well.
Yep. So I had a pretty big. I put $10 last week in the episode on Cooper Kupp and AJ Brown to get 200 receiving yards. That bet hit. They were both over 100 receiving yards. So pretty happy with that. That one was, I think, a bit plus 210. So that paid off well. But I posted on Twitter, if anyone saw that, on, I believe, Sunday morning, that I was putting a bet on the Lions. It was Jared Goff over 225. He threw for 350 yards, basically. It was Josh Reynolds over 40 receiving yards. He cleared that. All I needed was a David Montgomery 50 rushing yards. He's done it every week. What happens? Injury. I also do, when I'm watching games, I like to place bets during. Because I can't prove that I placed them, I don't count them in terms of these games. I win some, I lose some, but I don't count those. Another one I had this week, all I needed to win the bet, Christian McCaffrey, 60 rushing yards. He had 43, he's out. Him and Montgomery, both $20 bets, lost me a grand total of about $100 on 2 oblique injuries.
Well, fret not too much, my friend Drew, because you are still up a whopping $159 profit on the year. That is a margin of 199%. Your boy Uncle Bob over here is outbeating the S&P 500 at 3.92%. I was well in the money heading into this week, but with some terrible losses, I am profiting just a mere $1.37. So we're hoping to turn that around this week. Drew, you have 3 bets so far. Why don't you walk us through those quickly, and then I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, let me get my bets up here. Actually, hold up. Sorry, guys.
All right, well, while you're loading
why don't you go
let
through?
me jump into mine, right?
Yeah.
So I'm staying on my underdog picks this week. I'm placing $5 on the Jaguars to win at plus 122, $5 on the Lions money line at plus 130, and $5 on the Dolphins at plus 112. My overall thesis here is I like good teams when they're underdogs. I think all three of these teams are good, whether or not they're on the road or not. I'm not so certain that that's a relevant factor this season in particular. Again, the Lions are facing that Ravens team coming back from London. I also took a $2 bet for all three of those with the spread. So I wanted to parlay all three just in case they won, but give me a little bit of wiggle room by taking the spread there. And I did that for 2. So wagering $17, a bit more than usual. I know you have a little bit of beef with my picks this week, Drew. Maybe enlighten the viewer as to why you think I'm going to lose some money, and then tell us why you're going to win money on your bets.
Yeah, so we already talked a bit about, because it was, remind me again, the Jaguars, the Lions.
Yeah, it's the Jags on Thursday night without Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
It's the Lions against the Ravens, and then that Dolphins. So I think you've kind of hit.
Yeah, I've already hit on like my kind of like issues with those ones. I think that a lot of people are going to push the Jaguars and the Dolphins to better odds than they should have, because these are bigger name teams that have a lot of clout right now. But I see a lot of issues with them. Yeah. That's why I'm not the biggest fan. They're underdogs for a reason.
Right.
And I think they should be bigger underdogs than Vegas even currently has them. Because at the end of the day, the one thing that everyone should know, if you're going to be betting, understand one thing. Vegas odds are not what is likely to happen. Vegas odds are a combination of what bettors think will happen. And what that means is that bettors can move lines because Vegas just wants, no matter the result, they want to win. And so they are going to put the line to have that happen.
For those keeping score at home, essentially what that means, is that the casinos, the bookies, will take a ton of money on a certain line, which means they have a lot of exposure for that win or loss to happen. Therefore, they'll change the odds so that if the other alternative happens, they're taking more money there, and that they have a better chance of breaking even or winning. And so, again, that's why some of these games, the general public is actually deciding who's going to win or lose. That's why you don't often get a lot of good lines on like the Giants or the Steelers or the Cowboys, whether or not they're good or bad, because the public always got money on them. So over to you, Drew.
Yeah, so I have 3 bets this week. I'm putting down $15, $5 on each of these bets. They're all prop bets. I haven't bet any games yet. I usually like to wait a bit closer to bet games just to see injuries, like what's happening and all that. But I got first one, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff in that game to combine for 500 plus passing yards. This is a Jared Goff carry game. I think he can do it, especially if David Montgomery's going to be out. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs and Craig Reynolds are going to be able to run the ball great. I think it's going to be in Jared Goff's hands a lot. I like him to get 300 yards, and then I just hope that Lamar can cover the rest. That's at plus 155. My second bet is Travis Kelce, Keenan Allen, 15 plus receptions combined. You know what? These two guys, it's in the same game. I expect it to be a bit of a shootout. The Chargers didn't really do that this week, but they're typically in shootouts. The Chiefs have a good offense against a very porous defense. And guess what? These are the only 2 target options on those teams. So
yeah, I like that one. There's a lot of volume. Receptions sometimes kill me because sometimes you get those like George Kittle games that he had 2 nights ago. It's like 3 receptions, 90 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wonderful fantasy line. But if you're placing a bet like that one, I'm a little bit, I don't know. Both of those bets feel a little risky to me just because of the Lamar Jackson like run element.
Sure.
And then if Goff only puts up like 340 and then you're against a 180, that would hit. So, okay, I like that bet a little better. I might have to look into that a bit more. Then the receptions could be a bit. You need like a 9-6 reception-wise.
My
one more bet. Sorry.
And this one I absolutely love the value on. It's another 250-yard receiving yards for 2 players like what you lost on last week. This time it's Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown in that game. Again, you said this game, Eagles-Dolphins should be a shootout. I agree with you. Both secondaries are weak. Tyreek Hill 4 times this season has been over 150 yards. A.J. Brown over 100 yards each of the last 4 weeks. This is playing plus 600. that means it's 1 in 6 chance. No, this is way more likely than a 1 in 6 chance. Are you kidding? Do I expect to win this? No, but the value is way too good to not put some money on the line in this game. So those are my 3 bets.
And I like that last one specifically because of the value. I've been a little gun shy because I lost this thing by 243 last week. But I have a feeling by the end of the week I might have $1, $2, $3 on that one as well. Just letting the viewers know I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I do like it that much. Simply a value play. I do think 1 out of every 6 times, more than when these 2 teams play, those 2 guys will put up 250. So I think that's where, especially given
yeah.
I love gambling.
And again, for any of our listeners who want to see any new bets we make, every bet that we're counting for our season, we are posting on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at 4th and Goal 101. That's 4THAND 101. 4THAND GOAL 101. So that's also our handle on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. We release 2 shorts per day on each of those sites. And Twitch, I'm on a live stream every night where we have a big community, loves to talk gambling. So if you got some bets going on and you want to join a growing football community and a growing gambling community, much like Bookie Bob here, then please come watch us there. Again, at 4th and Goal 101 and spelled out. That's our tag on all socials. But with that, I think that's the end of our episode. Anything left from you, Uncle Bob?
No, looking forward to another great week. As always, go Steelers. Thank you guys for the love and support. See you on all our channels. In the meantime, let's go.
Okay, we will be back next week with another episode. Let's hope that the Lions are 6-1. With that, we will see you all later.